We're just lovebirds chirping through the day and beyond. I had a heart that was hurting, now you're here and it's gone. And baby, I've been working trying to right my wrongs. Since I'm certain that you're perfect, could you string me along? We're just love.
So I started my musical education in 3rd grade. I just left private school and I was going to be homeschooled, and my parents gave me a choice between playing guitar and piano. I grew up listening to a lot of classic rock stuff on the radio, and so guitar just had much more allure to me, so that's what I picked. And I also ended up playing saxophone a couple of years later, and then I picked up bassoon for a couple of years, and then I dabbled in piano lessons, and I also dabbled in vocal lessons a little bit. And then I always participated in whatever music stuff my school offered in the extracurriculars, like jazz band, jazz combo, jazz choir. And I've also learned a lot from playing at different bars and restaurants that helped me perfect my craft a lot. As I said, I was given a choice of guitar, piano, so I picked guitar. Picking up music was not something that was like something I particularly wanted to do at the time, if I'm being frank. So I had a teacher who came to the house, and that's where I learned how to read music and notes. And I feel like that gave me a heads up or a leg up, because I feel like a lot of people now, when they learn guitar, they're just using tabs, and I didn't have that kind of musical safety net. But I really did not enjoy it at the time, because I just wasn't playing anything I wanted to play. I grew up on classic rock music, I wanted to play what I knew. So eventually I switched to a different teacher, and that's when I learned how to play chords. And I kind of started singing along with what I was playing, because I was playing things that I was familiar with and really liked to play. That teacher was Paul French. I took lessons with him from probably 4th grade to my senior year of high school, and he actually helped produce my EP and played some of the lead guitar stuff on that, and my first full album. So I started experimenting with songwriting going into high school, probably freshman, sophomore year, and I was just really bad at it. I was always trying to recreate songs more or less from my artistical inspirations, like U2, Billy Joel, Elton John, Journey, Tom Petty. And I just found myself recreating the same things that they did, but with just different lyrics. And I just didn't feel like that was adequate. And eventually, going into high school, I discovered my 2 biggest songwriting inspirations would be John Mayer and Ed Sheeran. And they're the seminal pop songwriters to me. And when I discovered them, I kind of went on YouTube and I was just looking for lectures or interviews that they did and explained their process. Ed Sheeran probably summed it up the best on the way that helped me click of I need to write songs, which he kind of gave this analogy of a faucet that spews out dirty water, and the dirty water being the bad songs. And if you turn on the faucet and you get all these bad songs coming out, eventually you're going to start getting some good ones, and then the water comes out clean. And so I spent every day, probably the summer going into sophomore year through junior year, just writing songs, and eventually I started writing good ones that I liked and started recording. Part of what I like a lot about Ed Sheeran and John Mayer's songwriting was I think their lyrics are interesting, and I really like their melodies, and I like that they can just play a song, just sing it, and then it sounds really good with just guitar. They don't need all backing tracks. So that's what I really tried to do with everything that I wrote. When I sit down and write a song, I usually just take my acoustic guitar, sit there, come up with a pattern that I like. I typically don't like using just generic major and minor chords. I really like major 7 chords. They just have such a nice sound. So if you listen to a lot of my stuff, I think I probably only have 3 songs that don't have a major 7 chord in it, because I just really like the sound. I think it helps define my sound as an artist, just to use chords like that. But I also like to throw in dominant 7s, minor 7s, and stuff like that. And I try not to stick to generic chord patterns that you'd find in a pop song typically. I like to mix it up a bit, and I like to throw in some interesting riffs every once in a while to keep the listener on their feet. Lyrically, I took a lot of inspiration from themes explored in John Mayer and Ed Sheeran songs. When I started writing, I found myself at a lack of experience to even really write about. I just felt like I was young and I didn't feel like I had anything to say. And I felt like that was kind of a cop-out for me to do because I really wanted to write songs, and I was kind of putting an artificial roadblock in my way. So what I decided to do was kind of like take the themes that John Mayer and Ed Sheeran kind of talk about and the situations they describe, try to put myself in them, and then kind of say what I had to say from that perspective. And that's kind of a lot of what my earlier songs are about. Birds of a Feather specifically, having found love in my college years. That's really what that is. Wrote a lot of songs for my girlfriend, and so that album's really for her. Yeah, so I promote all of my music on Facebook and Instagram. You can find me at Andy Penk Music. I post daily or every other day covers typically, just to try and get a following and play songs people know. But I'll also post covers or different like acoustic versions of songs that I've written. I'll make little posts explaining like the meaning behind the songs I've written. As far as getting gigs goes, I've been doing that for about 5 years now. I kind of hustled a lot and went to different bars and restaurants locally, and would go in, kind of like knock on the door, ask the manager, we'd talk, and then I'd go in, play once, and then get on the schedule long term. Yeah, it was kind of hard to break into the music scene at first, because I mean, like as a young person, I was competing with a lot of older people who were more established at different bars and restaurants. So I felt like I needed to, like, as I said earlier, playing live really helped me improve my craft. Like I had to go to lots of open mics, and I had to get pretty damn good to be able to break in among an audience of all of these older people who really didn't want to see me succeed. Like I needed to bring a crowd to justify having someone as young as I was in the midst of all these people who've been playing around forever. As far as marketing Birds of a Feather specifically, that's been kind of hard because of COVID, and you can't really do a lot of live music stuff right now. I'm planning on doing a live stream in the future, like, because I've always done like a release party at a venue. So I plan on doing a live stream with the album soon, just to do like a live release where I just go through and play all the album tracks acoustically. And when COVID ends, I plan on doing a harder marketing push than with social media, and then probably with a few live shows of the album. So when I went to go record my first EP, I had no idea what I was doing at all. I was just this high school kid who wrote some songs, who wanted to record them and release them before I graduated because I thought that would be like a cool thing to do. So I talked to my guitar teacher, Paul, and he knew people at the studio locally, Acadia Recording Company, and Pat Keen Mastering, which is in downtown Portland, Maine. And so we ended up going there and doing the recording, and he ended up producing and playing on some of the songs. And then I did my next album there as well, and then I did this most recent album, Birds of a Feather, there. Milo Brooking, a friend of mine who'd been playing a band with me, played bass. Josh Madrano played drums. He's another local musician. I played all of the guitar, aside from one solo, which was played by a local country artist, Sean Mencher. And I did all the vocals. And then Louis Philippe, another local musician, played keyboards and piano and strings. And Todd Hutchison mixed and helped with the production. And then Pat Keen mastered that record. We did a lot of overdubs because I wanted to get a really full sound. I felt like some of my prior work didn't sound as full as it should. So we made sure we layered multiple acoustic and electric guitar tracks down on every track, I believe, on the album. And we made sure that we had good piano sounds, whether that needed, like, we felt like a song needed electric piano or a grand piano sound or just string patches. We took a lot more time than we had done with kind of figuring out the sounds than we had with the prior stuff, which I think made this a lot better product. And we did enough vocal takes to make sure we had plenty to work with and make sure that it sounded rather fresh. So I am in college right now. I'm finishing up my senior year at John Carroll University in University Heights, Ohio. I'll be majoring with an accounting degree and minoring with entrepreneurship. And then I intend on taking another year to get my MBA. I'm also writing a book right now, tentatively called The Musician's Hustle, which is kind of a part my story of going out as a young kid and booking gigs, but also hopefully it will serve as a guide for other musicians who are looking to get into like the local scene and book gigs themselves, whether that be at bars or restaurants or smaller local venues. So I have another single that I've already recorded that will hopefully be released for another album. Hoping to do another album sooner than later, but COVID kind of put a wrench in those plans. But there will be another one coming soon in the future. So I'd like to say thank you to my mom and dad for always supporting me with all of my musical endeavors, whether that be taking me and driving me all around to all these different music lessons that I took throughout my youth, or just being there when I've been playing at bars and restaurants more recently. Thank Paul French for teaching me how to play the guitar and for helping me get into recording music. I'd like to thank Milo Brooking for always being my man on the bass, Josh Madrano for laying down the drums really well on this record, Louis Philippe for trickling those keys, Todd Hutchison for being amazing at mixing and production, and Pat Keane for mastering the heck out of those tracks. And for my family and friends for always being so supportive of my musical endeavors.
We're just lovebirds chirping through the day and beyond. I had a heart that was hurting, now you're here and it's gone. And baby, I've been working trying to right my wrongs. Since I'm certain that you're perfect, could you string me along? We're just lovebirds singing softly, humming a tune. We leave the notes ringing on the I love yous. And I know that you're worth it, even though they may say I'm too young to know that with you I'll stay. And lately we've been sitting high up in a tree, taking in the sights and feeling the breeze on our shoulders. I know that I wanna grow older with you. So let's keep chirp, 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 chirping along. We're two lovebirds flying in the open air. I do my best to show you each day that I care. And now I'm just hoping in a couple of years you still love me enough to see our future is here. And lately we've been sitting high up in a tree, taking in the sights and feeling the breeze on our shoulders. I know that I wanna grow older with you. So let's keep chirp, 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 chirping